Welcome to Joyride with Expatriates. In this show, we bring every month a different person to talk about their expatriation experiences, how to manage global differences, and how to become an effective individual while living abroad. Hi, I'm Tatyana Fittipaldi, and today we have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Nazli Alimen. Nazli was born in Turkey. She is an academic and works as a lecturer at the Birmingham City University. She has lived abroad for over 10 years in different countries, including England, Italy, Finland, and the US. She currently resides in Birmingham, England. Please join me in welcoming Nazli to our show. Hi, Nazli. Thank you so much for joining our show. I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Tatyana. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conversation.
I am super excited. How about we start by you sharing your background? Where were you born and what did you used to do in your country before you started your international journey?
I was born in Turkey and I was raised there. And after completing my BA studies in fashion design and business, I decided to concentrate on English language skills. So it was kind of my dream to go to New York and study English. So this is what I did. It was really strange year because I just arrived after September 11 and stayed there for around 9 months. I studied English and then I also continued studying English in Brighton, England for academic English because I was planning to do a master's degree, an English program. So I stayed in Brighton about 3-4 months. It was a long time ago. It was at the end of 2002. Then I changed my plans and I decided to do my master's in Italy rather than the UK or any other English-speaking country.
So a nice place to go to have that.
Yeah,
very nice.
Especially for someone studying fashion or
yes.
involved in fashion. So I moved to Milan and I started studying Italian. Then I did my master's in brand management at Istituto Marangoni. And I had like about 2 years work experience in the visual merchandising, mostly worked with Benetton, an Italian brand, as you may know. Then I decided to advance my academic career, and I started to do that with an MBA, business administration degree, because I thought I would greatly benefit from that studying business administration, because previously it was more about like visual side of branding and business. So I started doing my MBA in Izmir. Previously I lived in Istanbul and worked there, so I moved to Izmir. It's the third largest city in Turkey, located on the west coast, directly facing Greece. And after my MBA took 2 years. And during my MBA program, I also had the Erasmus opportunity, student exchange program in Europe. So I spent a semester in Verona at Verona University. I don't know if you've been there. There's a house of Giulietta and Romeo. You can visit the house of Giulietta, Romeo and Juliet. And Dante Alighieri wrote a part of his Divine Comedy there. So it was also a nice experience, and I was back to Italy, and I was very happy about that. Then after my MBA, I started doing my PhD in business administration, again in my city, in Izmir. I went back to the same city. And after 2 years, I said that it's not the topic I want to work on, and I should move to fashion studies more. Then I met Professor Rina Lewis, and she was happy to have me as a PhD student. Then I moved to London, and I lived there for 5 years, completed my PhD in marketing and cultural studies. Then I moved back to Izmir. And as I got a postdoc opportunity in Helsinki, I moved to Helsinki and started working at the University of Helsinki. Then I got a job, a lecturer position in Birmingham, England, at Birmingham City University. So this is where I am at the moment, in Birmingham, England, and I've been working at Birmingham City University as a lecturer.
Wow, what a journey. So you had, many expatriation experiences.
Yeah, I think I've been working, I'm for sure I've been living abroad for 10 years, for more than 10 years, but I don't know exactly how long. Probably I should just give some time and calculate so I can give you the exact time. But for sure, for over 10 years, and I lived in the US, UK, Finland, and
Italy. And what was your biggest challenges in these countries while you were, adapting there? What was the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenge was the language barrier, because when I arrived to New York, my English was really very poor because I didn't study any of my degrees, let's say a secondary school or high school, called high school in the American context, or my BA degree, all of them were in Turkish. So my English was quite poor. So this was the biggest challenge. Also in Italy, as I arrived, I didn't know any Italian, and I was trying to communicate in English. And although I was in Milan, it's it's a multicultural, it's a trade industry city. There weren't many people speaking English, and sometimes there were misunderstandings. For example, when I first moved to Milan, I needed to get residency permit. I needed to go to the police office and so on, and they gave me a list what I needed to get, and it was like in every country they request this. You have to do it in the first week or in the first 10 working days and so on, and they distributed the list in English, so it was easy for me to understand what they request. However, and back then the internet connection was not that good, and I just arrived to the country. I didn't have Wi-Fi or mobile connection. So I was thinking, because I needed to get a stamp, and they stated the value, let's say like €6 stamp as part of my application. And I thought maybe I can go to a newsstand. This is where I can get a stamp. This is what I was thinking. And I asked the lady, I went to a nearby newsstand, I just noticed that. And I asked the lady, she was in her 50s, and I asked him quite slowly, like, can I get a stamp, please? €6 stamp. And she was like, stamp. And I thought like Italian is, and because I was thinking like it's like Latin language, and English has a basis in Latin, and Italian is just read as it's written. So I thought it would be easier for her to understand if I said, like, if I just pronounce the word as it's written. So I said stamp, and she was like, stampa, stampa, la stampa. And there was a new newspapers outside, and she was pointing them to me. Stampa, stampa, la stampa, stampa. And I was looking at those newspapers. I'm like, woman, I cannot even speak Italian. Why are you showing me those newspapers? Then I learned La Stampa is a newspaper, and the stamp is called francobollo in Italian. So, yeah, I don't remember like what happened afterwards, who helped me to get a stamp. I finally managed, but like I still remember that moment because it was really, remarkable. La Stampa story, my La Stampa story. So it was the biggest challenge for me, the language barrier. And another one is the cultural difference. And the thing is, in this highly globalizing world, every country is getting similar. All countries are getting similar to each other. However, some countries are still like they still have distinct cultures, for example, in Finland. And I come from Turkey, it's Middle East, Eastern Mediterranean country, you know, we are like warm-blooded, friendly, and we easily develop relationships with people and so on. England sits somewhere in between.
In the middle.
But Finland is totally different. You know, people are quite reserved and cold. So it was really difficult for me to communicate with people and also making friends. But later on, I realized that, like, for example, in my culture or in Greece, in Italy, or in Brazil, I think as people meet, they are quite warm and welcoming. I think we are just kind of building those bridges, relationships. And after like some time of interaction, we start eliminating people, you know, some of them remain with us and some of them, we see them from time to time and some of them, no. So, but this thing works in contrary in the Finnish culture. This is how I interpret it, you know, people do not get friendly immediately, unlike my own culture, but it takes them time, you know, they develop the relationship. And after that, you know, you really become good friends. So it's the opposite way. So it was really challenging for me as
that's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, but later on, I still have friends from Finland. Okay, there are few friends, but like we really have good contact and we still hear from each other. So the process works differently.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a very interesting perspective, Nazli. Very interesting. And so you were talking about this, you know, how people engage differently in the countries. So do you have any tips for our viewers to avoid misunderstandings in these cultures that you have been?
I think the best thing is to hear from people who have got experience in certain countries. So this is what I could recommend people moving
connect with people that has
yes. And in this respect, I think your podcasts are very helpful, so they can hear from people who lived in different countries. So it's good. And yeah, and I think people need to be open-minded, and if they feel they are offended or like if they don't understand something, then they can kindly ask, I'm sorry, this is what you said. Or like even if they cannot ask this to the person, then they can ask another person, you know, I've been told this and that. And in my mind, it's quite offensive or it's not okay, or it made me feel like I wasn't doing something well, or like it's good to find out. But the first thing is to be open-minded and open to different perspectives, experiences, and so on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So ask other people that have already some experiences and yeah. Ask them their perspective, right? Because sometimes we view things and we say, oh, that's so offensive, but that yeah. Sometimes it's just part of the culture and it makes sense there. It's not to be offensive. It means something different in the local place, right?
Yeah. For example, when I was working at Helsinki University, one of the admin officers wrote me an email saying, because previously I attended one exam as part of a course I developed and delivered there. But the second time he told me that I didn't need to be in the exam room. And I thought, and he wrote it quite like, I wouldn't say negative, but quite like neutral and very direct way. And I couldn't make sense of it. And I thought like I did something bad. I did something in inappropriate way. So I was just being put aside. And, you know, like for over an hour, I was thinking, and I really felt bad. And then I spoke to a professor who was kind of my mentor at Helsinki University, and he said, look, we Finnish people are just like this, you know, we don't do chit chat, and like either it's verbal or written communication. We are just straightforward to the point.
And straight to business.
Yeah, straight to business. And he was telling me, and do not forget there is no word for please in the Finnish language. So we don't, like, we are just, if you are doing something, you are expected to do it well. So this is the way how they communicate. And I remember when I went to the department meeting for the first time, I took some bananas and nuts with me, you know, like when you're having a meeting, you chit chat and like it's nice to have some snacks around and so on. And I placed them in the middle of the table. And that mentor told me, yes, I know, because he worked in the States, in South Africa and so on. And he told me, like, I know in different countries, it's very common to bring some food, snacks and so on. However, in Finland, we just need to cover what we need to cover and we just end the meeting. So there's no need for banana. I was like, okay. And
you got the message. You got the message. Okay, no bananas.
and also for me, like when we had the faculty meeting, because when I was studying and working in London, from time to time we would get together in the staff room for the school meeting, but also we would have some wine and nibbles, you know, and I thought it would be the same. However, there like also the faculty meetings, like we just got together, and if it's planned for 30 minutes, it ends within 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because there are a lot of cultures. So for example, I come from Brazil, and social, being social also relates to food. So we usually do things. Yeah. We connect social with food too. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
And it's also showing your love and showing you care.
Yeah, and friendliness and like being laid back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but things are different. But after that, like there are some good things in each culture, in each country, and bad things. For example, another good thing is people would always mind their own business. You know, they're
not nosy
your personal life. For example, when I arrived to Birmingham to work, my experience was totally different than what I had in London. But like before my arrival, my friends told me like London is totally different than the rest of the country, so be prepared. And also like when I started working, my colleagues were like, oh, so do you have boyfriend? Do you do this? And they were asking about my personal life, about my religion, you know, and I found them such questions were very inappropriate, but maybe they thought they were caring, they were showing interest in me. Yeah, there are such things, and I was thinking like, can they just be like Finnish people? Everybody is like here. And you know, sometimes kind of forced socializing. You know, you're expected to join this Christmas dinner or like after work pub meeting and so on. And I'm like, okay, it would be very nice to have Finnish colleagues.
That's a very interesting perspective. So let me ask you something. So what would you think people could ask to show that they are curious about you, but without being nosy, you know, without making you feel that you are kind of, you know, being too nosy in their things and their lives, especially when you don't know the person yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, I think they kind of have some overall ideas about people coming from, for example, South America, Mediterranean, Middle East, something like we are warm, friendly, and so on. However, we still have our limits. For example, it's not good to ask people about their religion or like which church do you belong to, which sect do you belong to, you know, it's the case. Especially people, let's say like people from Lebanon, it's like a no thing. As you get to know people, you know, like whether they are Muslim, Christian, Druze, you know, and so on. So there are limits. Okay, we are friendly, warm-blooded people. However, there are limits. And also, like asking such personal questions don't mean that you are being friendly and so on. What I would recommend is try to build a kind of a rapport, kind of initial relationship. And the thing is, for example, when I started working here in my first week, one of my colleagues, and we work in an open office, she was asking me like if I consumed alcohol, if I ate pork, and so on. And another thing is, if a person comes from a Muslim majority or like Jewish majority, if they come from Israel, it doesn't mean they are Jewish or they are practicing Jews, you know. So they shouldn't have such assumptions, and get to know. And about that colleague, I'd rather prefer her to ask me, let's have a cup of tea and chat, you know, not in an open office, because I don't want to discuss my point of view in terms of like religion, my personal life, and so on, you know. And personal life especially, I think it even comes after the religion, because you might be interested in the culture and you show this interest, you know, what happens, like it's a Muslim majority country, is it possible to find pork, do people consume alcohol, and so on. And I can explain there are secular Muslims and they are observant Muslims and so on. Like even if they observe, you know, they may drink alcohol, but they do not consume pork because it's a cultural thing and so on. So it's better to do such things step by step, and also like in a friendly setting, not like in the middle of an open office, like and the religion thing, it's like asking someone directly how much you earn, you know. It's not good, and it's like they should also think like would
everybody feel comfortable. Yeah.
Yes. And like if, let's say, like if they go to a Muslim majority country and people ask them, oh, so do you eat pork? Is it okay? No, it's not okay. So it's not fine to ask someone from a Muslim majority country if they eat pork and so on. So they have to ask themselves, would I be happy? Would I feel comfortable to be inquired about this and that? And also give some time, like do not make that person as if they are in a human zoo, you know. So
not like an interrogation, right?
Yeah, not like an interrogation. Like, oh, there's a different type of species. Let's investigate it. Let's study. So
yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you something. So you've been to many places, and most expatriates, when they're going to another place, they usually have to prove themselves, right? So I was wondering if you had ever, you know, suffered any acts of discrimination because of your origin when you were in another country, or how did it work for you?
Yeah, before moving to Birmingham, I'd never had such experiences. Birmingham is totally different environment for me, although they have ethnic minority communities. They are very unblended, you know, like there is this Pakistani community, Hindu community, Sikh community, and English people living in English majority towns and so on. Yeah, and here, the thing is, if I didn't have a high level of academic background, because as I arrived here, I had my PhD and I published a book and
achievements, right?
And so on. And none of my team members have a PhD or have publications and so on. So it was already, but at the same time, I could see that like they are English, and the thing is, my friends also keep telling me, be aware, they will think they are above you because this is how the education system works here in this country. Maybe if I didn't have this academic background, yes, I would have struggled more, but still, you know, coming from and not being non-native speaker, this is another thing, and they are not experienced, even students and even my colleagues. One colleague of mine, went to a lecture room. Later on, two students told me that, and she asked the students whether they could understand my accent. So it's a very close, yeah, in this respect, yes. And I do understand why there's this integration issue and why some minority groups, ethnic groups have too much anger towards the government, towards locals, and so on. You know, because like sometimes I would get angry as well, and I would feel really bad because of being discriminated, being treated differently and badly. Although I have the academic background and I have the professional, yeah, despite that. So yeah, but maybe we need to grow a little bit thick skin. And yeah, but the best thing is to probably challenge people. Like if you are feeling bad, if something said made you upset, then it's better to challenge people. I think what makes you comfortable, what makes you okay to ask me this question, or what makes you treat like me? Because I would feel that in team meetings, no one bothered asking me because they already have those connections. And so it's better to say things out loud or maybe email them. Yeah, but also the institutions have the responsibility, I think, to train their staff members in terms of equality, diversity, and inclusion, but also we can make them aware. Maybe they are not aware what they are doing. They are being offensive and so on. So it's better. Would you be happy if you are in a foreign country and if you are being asked this and that, or if you are being treated in this way? Yeah, but we are all human beings. Sometimes, you know, it comes out as anger, or like you just turn to yourself and question, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is, instead of victimizing yourself and remain in the victim role, basically, you know, speak up and
Yes.
bring to the person's awareness what they are causing and how they're making you feel, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't, but you know, it's worth the try, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and also I raised the issue with my line manager previously, and she didn't seem to understand. So I needed to take a step by myself and try to find a solution and make people above her aware of such things going on. It's not easy, you know, like unconscious bias.
Yes, true.
And racism and discrimination, these things do not get eliminated overnight, and we all have unconscious bias. So we just need to reflect on, we just need to think about, and we need to hear from people. We shouldn't feel bad if someone is telling us, okay, you told me this, or like you made this gesture, however it means something bad in my culture, so I was wondering,
what does it really mean?
Clarify, yeah,
it's that.
Clarify ourselves. And also informal relationships, informal meetings are very important. Go meet. And also, like I was reading, like pub meetings, because not all people consuming alcohol, it doesn't mean because of religious,
could be something else.
Religious rules. Yes, it can be something else. So give people give the opportunity to meet somewhere else, maybe in a cafe or in a restaurant, or just like arrange a meeting room, and yeah, just give people to chat informally and hear from each other, hear from their similarities, differences, and so on. So this is what I can recommend, actually.
Perfect. Sounds a great recommendation. So you mentioned about you know, you working in Birmingham City University. So tell us. So you're a scholar, right? So tell us a little bit about your research.
My research in my PhD, I worked on modest fashion. I looked at 3 faith-inspired communities in Turkey, and I investigated their clothing practices. I looked at both men and women. And I also investigated men's facial hair, women's scarves, the different ways they tie their scarves, and so on. And later on, I worked on circumcision costumes because boys' circumcision is a big thing in Turkey. Girls' circumcision is not the case, but boys, yes, and they have specific parties and also special outfits. So I looked at those, and recently I've been working on Ottoman outerwear. They were worn by both men and women back then, but I'm looking at women's outerwear, and yeah, it's really interesting because the way, you know, all Muslim and non-Muslim women wore that outfit, but they were using different colors, different fabrics, and so on. And I
Different choices, right? Yeah.
different choices, but there are similarities, differences. It's very nice, and also doing archival research, looking at historical data. It's another dimension, another addition to my research skills. So I'm very happy. This is what I've been concentrating on recently, Ottoman outerwear.
Wow, that's awesome. So you have a lot, you know, a broad you know, knowledge about fashion. You've done, you know, bits and pieces here and there. So a lot of knowledge you must have. So what kind, so in terms of brand management, imagine this, imagine you have a person who is an expatriate, he or she is living in another country, and they decide to open a business and become an entrepreneur, right? So what types of tips would you have for them to, you know, to help them with the brand management in a different culture, right? Because sometimes working on a brand in your culture is easy because you know things, you know how to work,
you know, culture,
but then you go to somewhere else, it's completely different. People perceive things differently. So share something with our audience about that.
So I would recommend them to do research.
Research, okay.
We always tell students to do primary research and secondary research. Primary research, go collect data from locals, can be either online, what they are sharing on Facebook, what they are talking about on Instagram, what they are interested in, what are the things odd in that culture or acceptable or favorable in that culture. Hold focus group interviews, one-to-one interviews, surveys. So these are not really difficult to run. And now, like, all that information can be found online, you know, even like go on YouTube and even Coursera. There are so many courses offered for free. So it's very easy to access that knowledge. And another thing is secondary research, like they should read some credible resources on business area. For example, they can buy, let's say if they are planning to develop a business in Brazil, then I'm sure there are some magazines, industry reports, even like in newspaper sense, there must be like branding, advertising, magazines for business people or people who are interested in knowing more. So they can start with those. And these are the things I can say, and pay attention to cultural differences, business differences. They are even covered in marketing, management, business textbooks, you know, BA or MA level. So this is what I can recommend them. And also pay attention, and also doing primary research is paying attention what's going on around us. Hear from your local friends.
And focusing on preferences, understanding local preferences, and okay.
What is acceptable, what's not acceptable,
what's not,
what would sell more, what wouldn't sell. So it's good to see, it's good to be aware of what's going on. And
having focus groups with locals is a great idea, because then you start to immerse yourself in the culture too, right? You can you know, ask questions and clarify things directly. That's an awesome
thing. And they don't have to be like well-designed focus group studies. You know, it can be a group of friends. You go out or you
and talk and yeah.
your house and like, what do you think? And especially to asking people, let's say if they are planning to develop a fashion brand, then it's good to ask fashion conscious people, see who is more interested in fashion, investing more, following maybe some influencers on Instagram, and they may provide more information, or someone interested in, let's say, wine, and you are planning to sell some wine from your home country in the foreign country you are living in. So it's good to speak to people who love wine or who are interested in knowing more about wine, attending wine tastings and so on. So good to speak to people who have some specific knowledge in the area you are looking at. So this is what I can recommend.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. And talking about, engaging with people and immersing in the culture, let's talk about inclusiveness. So you have a broad view of the world. You've been in many different, very different countries. So in your opinion, what could future global leaders, either, people who are studying today or who are currently global leaders and want to become a better global leader, what do you recommend them to become better in cross-cultural understanding?
The thing is, they need to go outside of their familiar comfort zones. This is what I noticed with my own students. They always socialize with students similar to themselves.
Similar.
Okay, really easy for us, if someone
it's easy, yeah.
Someone looks similar to you, someone lives similar to you, but the thing is, they need to go out of their comfort zones and meet people from different ethnic backgrounds, different nationalities, and so on. And I think today's learning environments, they really offer this opportunity to students, because there are some exchange students or foreign students, so they shouldn't hesitate. And another thing is, because when I was a student back then, we had those like pen friends. We were writing letters.
Yes, I had some pen friends.
But the thing is, things are much easier now.
Nowadays, you can do a Zoom call with your pen friend.
Exactly, and also, like there are so many videos to watch on YouTube, TED Talks, some good quality ones.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure they can learn about other cultures, and even some documentaries and books available online. So there are so many resources available on the internet, and they should definitely, this is what I tell young people to do, they should take advantage of such, especially free resources available on the internet, but they have to be careful whether this information is credible or not.
Yes, the credibility.
TED Talks or famous magazines such as National Geographic, So this is the reliable information. This is what I can recommend them. They need to be open-minded, and they shouldn't hesitate, because the thing is, sometimes people, they are not sure whether they should say hi and start communicating. Yes, they should definitely do it. They shouldn't be shy. This is what I noticed in my students. Like, although they are Gen Z, they use social media. They are so self-confident and so on. However, in terms of developing relationships, I cannot say they are really self-confident. But it's important to be self-confident. It's that person is just another human being like yourself, and just communicate.
True. Yeah. Everybody has their own insecurities, right? So and they're not going to bite you. So it's always good to go and be curious. Yeah.
Or like last year, one student of mine said, a black student, a white student asked her, like, why, like, this George Floyd thing, Black Lives Matter, what's the difference being a black person in England? And I really like that black student's answer to her. She said, think about, you are walking to the university building during the daylight. But if you are a Black person, it's the same for if you are walking after 10 p.m. So you have to be careful. You have to be aware of what threats can come from outside, and you have to watch out as well. So it was nice, like if you have such curiosities, and also like sitting outside talking to other white people doesn't really make you understand why these things are going on. So it's better to communicate with people, ask them what's going on, what makes you react that way. So we need to communicate. We need to hear from each other. So this is,
and we must be more tolerant too, right? Because sometimes our first reaction is to become angry, or and sometimes we have to just breathe and say, okay, so let me clarify what's going on here, and go one level above in terms of understanding, and try to understand what's going on. Yeah, makes sense. And listen, you talked about hand gestures just a moment ago, and I'm dying to ask you this question. So let me share one gesture that is very common in Brazil, and what does it mean, and then please share one from Turkey, okay? So for example, in Brazil, if you went to someone's house and they served you a dish that was very delicious, you might do, "That was delicious." You might use that gesture, "That was delicious." So what type of hand gesture would you say would you want to share in Turkey?
Holding an ear. We just make this one, and we also have an idiom, like if you are making things overcomplicated, like showing your ear like this instead of that. Otherwise, like we don't have anything to do with the ear. Maybe in some recipes you can see like the dog should be the this I don't know, density. But like I sent you one file.
So let me share the file with our audience.
The thing is, I went to Birmingham University's art gallery in November 2019 when a friend of mine was visiting me, and I came across that painting, an Italian painting. Yes, and my sister told me it has a Medici meaning, specific meaning. However, in Turkey, this one is quite like a middle finger, maybe a little bit like a kinder version of the middle finger. Yes, I don't know, maybe a female version of the middle finger. I don't know. But
and in this context, is this a bad thing or a good thing?
It's not a pleasant thing to show this to people.
Okay.
So it's like
showing
kind of
middle
showing
finger. So that's interesting, because this gesture actually means good luck in Brazil. So you see how interesting. The same gesture can be different in different places, right?
I'm really interested to know what this gesture means for the Medici. And I'm sure there's a specific meaning, otherwise he shouldn't be depicted in this painting doing this gesture. So it must have some meaning. But when I was visiting that art gallery, I came across this and I was laughing, and my friend wouldn't understand. She was a Finnish friend of mine visiting me, and I just took photos and sent them on WhatsApp to some of my Turkish friends, and my sister told me it's very common in the Renaissance Italy to have that gesture. So this is what my sister told me, and I think I should investigate. And another thing, it's not a hand gesture, but just facial expression. So in many countries, I think no is this, right? But in Turkey, no is either with some noise, or like you can even move your eyebrows. No. And I remember when I was studying English in the States, one of my teachers spent a couple of years in Turkey as an exchange student, and later on she returned for a year traveling and so on. So I did this gesture in her lecture. So she told me, I do understand what what this gesture means in your culture because I lived in Turkey. However, don't do that because don't do that. Try not to do that outside of your country because it doesn't mean anything in many other cultures. So now I think now after years, because it was in 2001, 20 years ago, I think I've got used to do this when someone is asking me, and I just wanna make a gesture either than answering them verbally, but like this one, or no, I rarely do.
Awesome. That's super interesting because basically what you're saying is sometimes we're so accustomed in doing certain gestures in our country, but they will mean nothing to the other countries, and you are not going to communicate yourself in the way that you are expecting, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's very, very interesting.
But the thing is, like in close cultures, especially during the Ottoman Empire, when different nationalities were living together, they were using the same expression. For example, if you go to Greece, probably they will understand what it means. And also in Italy, my friends told me like it's very Southern Italian, like Southern Italians do that. You know, there's this North and South division in Italy. And they said like also some Southern Italians do that as no.
And I didn't know that. Okay.
It looks quite
so maybe in the Mediterranean region, right? Maybe that's something in more in the interesting. That's
definitely, because we are talking about globalization as if it's a contemporary thing, but globalization existed even centuries ago. People are doing trade in between, sailing, moving around. There were wars, so yeah. I don't do that anymore.
So let me ask you something, and you can use this gesture or not. So I am going to show you the card for our card reading session.
Okay.
Do you want it or no? Do you want it or no?
Yes, I want it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. So I am going to share the card with you here. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see the card. And then please read the card out loud to our viewers. And then let us know what comes to your mind.
Hope. I decide that I'm allowed to be. It's more like showing gratitude and trying to draw positivity, good vibes to yourself. I decide that I'm allowed to be blessed. I'm in control of my life. I am in control, internal locus of control, not people around me are affecting me. And circumstances and situations always favor me through synchronicities, which means I think it's like by coincidence, they favor me.
What comes to your mind when you read?
The one in the middle, the text in the middle, circumstances and situations always favor me. I don't think they always favor me, but the thing is, I learn something from every circumstance and situation.
Yeah, that's so internal locus of control.
whether they favor me or not, it doesn't mean if it's something not a pleasant outcome. It doesn't mean it has some value in my life or it doesn't contribute to my personal or professional development. I just try to say what didn't work, what could be done differently, or just like sometimes you dedicate too much time and effort and things just don't happen as you want them to be. So it's just like life. Yeah. So there's something like I always believe that everything happens for a reason, and that everything can be a good thing or a bad thing. So
yeah, and depends on our perspective too, right?
Yeah, yes, and they don't always have to favor me. No, I think it will be very childish to expect that, you know. always favor me like a spoiled child, always favor me, always get presents, always hear nice things, always have good outcomes. No. Yeah. Yes, and yes, yeah, I have internal locus of control. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nazli. I really appreciate it. And just for those who are new to the show, let me just say that this is a card deck that Coaching Expatriates sell. And basically, it's part of a program to help people, read the cards and help exercise their resilience by doing this exercise of thinking about different perspectives and how you can feel more in control of your life. So Nazli, thank you so much for giving your perspective. And thank you so much for being in my show here today. I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate your time, your perspectives, all the tips that you gave. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really had time to reflect on my experience, what happened, and also this card, sometimes we need to stop to think what's going on, how we are feeling, like how we are, what we are thinking, and so on. This really has given me this opportunity, and thank you very much. And it's been a great opportunity to get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have another Brazilian friend. Yeah, and hopefully we will meet somewhere one day.
True. Hopefully we will meet in person.
Yeah, in person.
And exchange more hand gestures about each other.
Yeah, probably. Let me think. Let me take some notes, because this is the first thing came to my mind, because it's very uncommon in other cultures. And yeah, in Brazil, I didn't know it. In Brazil, it means good luck. You just told me about it. So let me think about what different hand gestures we have got.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nazli, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatyana.
Thank you. Wow, what a joyride. That was amazing. As always, I will leave the links of the things that we talked about in the show in the description below. If you liked our show, make sure to share with your friends and give us a like so other people can find us too. Thank you so much for watching.